Love comes softly down a stairwell of velvet halls, where every echo carries a name that isn't written in the family ledger. In these royal worlds, tradition is a map. But the heart is a compass that sometimes points somewhere new, somewhere dangerous, somewhere home. This is a story of three royal couples who taught their courts that love can bloom when it's shun tea. And that perseverance can turn a whispered vow into a forever. So lean in. And let the palace doors fall quiet behind you as we listen to the soft turning of fate. In a sunlit courtyard of a distant realm, the air smelled of apricot blossoms and warm rain. Queen Isla watched the gardener's son, Mateo, paint the gate with colors that looked like summer had learned to sing. He wasn't born to banners or ballrooms. He was born to brushes and brushes of color. The patient poetry of the everyday. The world said, a queen cannot wed a painter, and Isla felt that push sharp as a dagger of royal expectation rest on her shoulder like a second crown. But every brushstroke he laid on the old gate was a map toward a kinder way to rule. And she found herself fusing her courage with his quiet, stubborn light. It began with small, stubborn conversations by the orchard. The kind that stretch over days and turn into weeks. They spoke of weathered gates and the stories hidden in the grain of timber. Of the trust it takes to let someone else shape your world. Mateo told her that art could be a kind of law. A way to hold the imperfect beauty of people as they were, not as they were supposed to be. Isla's reply rose in a tremor of honesty. A queen must decide not only with logic but with how the heart remembers what it has learned to forget. When the court whispered, she learned to listen to the truth that sounds most like hope. The relationship grew in defiance of the calendar. A quiet revolution that asked only to be allowed to unfold. What followed was not a storm but a series of small, unassuming choices. Isla inviting Mateo to the summer festival to display his paintings. Mateo binding his art to the palace's future by restoring neglected rooms with color that invited songs, not councils. The people noticed a glow in their queen when she passed through the gardens. A gentleness in the halls that had not lived there before. The court, and then the country, learned that love could be a craft of stewardship as much as a vow whispered beneath the chandelier. It wasn't merely romance, it was a new way of governing through tenderness. Story 2 threads through the hills that cradle a wider kingdom. Crown Prince Lian, raised on the unlikely idea that duty could wear a smile and still carry a burden, met Lira, a healer who walked the edges of the royal maps, people who had learned to barter health with patience. And to listen to the body's quiet mutinies against destiny. In the old laws, children of the throne were promised to other dynasts. To old friends of power who would keep a fragile peace. Lian saw something truer in Lira. The way her hands moved with the mercy of a storm. The way her eyes held forgiveness for those who had nothing to offer but time. Lian's father warned him that a love like this would rattle the kingdom's frame. Yet the more the prince watched Lira tend to the sick and the poor, the more he understood. Love is not an escape from duty. It is a discipline that makes duty worth carrying. They wed not as a rebellion against the crown but as a partnership forged in the fires of listening. The new alliance was not merely personal, it was political. A healing treaty that promised the kingdom a future where medicine and mercy were not luxuries but responsibilities shared by all who wore a royal badge. Lira's presence softened the hard lines of privilege. She asked for reforms that would reach beyond the palace walls, public clinics, trained midwives in every town, a calendar of care that did not discriminate by birth. The court fidgeted, then began to hum with a cautious optimism. If the prince could learn to trust a healer, perhaps the realm could learn to trust its own vulnerable humanity again. The weight of tradition can feel like armor, heavy and cold, until someone demonstrates that armor can warm the heart to hope. Lian's mother, a queen who spoke little but watched much, saw the glimmer of a different future in her son's choice. She did not denounce him. She modeled the path of reverence for Lira. of acknowledging a person's value beyond the line of succession. It took time, months where the throne's routine kept trying to pull them back into the familiar politics of marriage markets and alliances, but love persisted as something stubborn and bright and true. The kingdom learned that compromise is not surrender, that a crown can be worn with humility as well as pride. Story 3 travels farther, to a kingdom where borders themselves are delicate, almost poetic, and where a queen named Amara faced a crossroads that would shape not only her life but the fate between two neighboring realms. Amara's heart belonged to Soren, a courier whose letters carried seasons across deserts and storms. Their love began with a rumor of a stolen hour, two strangers meeting in a library's quietest corner, trading glances over maps of a world neither fully owned. The royal court wanted a union that would solidify power, an alliance that would stand firm like a wall. Amara wanted the warmth of a choice, the courage to say aloud that a heart could travel beyond borders and still come home to the same bed and the same morning sun. They stood in the throne room, the chandeliers dimmed to honor the ancient rules that had guided their people for centuries. Amara spoke of unity shaped by kindness, of treaties born in shared meals and long conversations that stretched late into the night. Soren, with the quiet humor that often softened the sharp edges of fear, spoke of how love could irrigate every parched place in a land divided by distance. Not with skepticism but with a growing awareness that tradition is not a jail but a gate, one that can be opened with consent, empathy, and a shared vow to protect the vulnerable. When the dawn finally arrived, Amara chose to acknowledge her heart's truth, and Soren chose to stand at her side, not as a servant to the throne, but as a partner who would guard the realm's humanity as fiercely as its borders. The choice cost them something, the sting of whispers, the sideways glances of courtiers who had learned to read power like a weather chart. Yet the moment they stepped forward, the moment they raised their joined hands beneath a window of dawn light, something old began to bend toward mercy. The people saw that love, when paired with a plan, can make communities stronger than any decree. It wasn't about dismissing tradition. It was about rewriting it so that love became the guiding star the kingdom could trust. The three couples did not erase history, they reinterpreted it, teaching their children and their courtiers that a royal life can be both noble and tender, that strength and vulnerability can coexist, and that the best legacies are built on the daily acts of choosing each other again and again. If you listen closely, you can hear the echo of those choices in the quiet corners of today's stories, the way a gate is painted with color, the way a healer's hands steady a crowd, the way a courier's letters cross oceans and arrive as promises. These are not just tales of romance, they are blueprints for resilience. They remind us that the crown is heavy, yes, but it is carried more lightly when love is the atlas and patience the compass. The couples did not demand a perfect love nor seek a flawless dawn. They pursued a love that was real, imperfect, daring, stubbornly hopeful, and ultimately, triumphant. So we end where we began, with a courtyard sun slipping through the leaves, with laughter leaking from a palace balcony, with a room filled with the quiet courage of people who chose each other when the world said to choose otherwise. The stories of Isla and Mateo, Lian and Lira, Amara and Soren are not just about romance. They are about the long, generous work of growing together, the discipline of listening, the bravery to break a cycle of expectation, and the generous belief that love, when tended with care, can outlast a rumor, outshine a fear, and outlive a calendar's most rigid rules. If romance is a map, these are the landmarks you'll want to follow. Small conversations that turn into shared futures, healing that travels from heart to heart and back again, and the unyielding promise that a royal life can still be a life where love leads the way. May every listener who feels the weight of expectations remember that the most enduring crowns are not always worn on the head but carried in the heart. And in the quiet afterglow of these stories, Let hope rise like a dawn over a quiet kingdom that when love chooses us, we learn to choose it right back, again and again. Until the tradition we build together shines brighter